Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Amala, for the introduction, and thank you, Mark, for having me here today. So I'm Emily, and I'm a product designer. And people, usually at this point, would want me to explain a little bit further about myself, or they would switch off because they think I'm just another designer who makes things pretty for a living. But sometimes I wonder, what if I said, "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Emily, and I'm a doctor." Immediately, your reaction would be different probably. You would think I'm a young female who's probably very smart and with a very big heart. So I've always wondered to myself, why can't design as a profession also seen as something that can contribute to our community? Why can't design also have a positive feedback from people? I know that many of you in this room might not think this way, but at the same time, I've constantly been told that design is not a profession. Why? Because it doesn't make money, and apparently it doesn't contribute to our society. So the conversation usually ends up with, "Emily, you should reconsider your future because design is not a profession." But usually I don't listen to people. So what happened is I went on with it, and I believe that design can contribute to our society in different ways. So let me tell you a little bit more about my story. So I was actually raised in a family with 3 generations living under the same roof. This meant that 11 of us lived together. Here we have 20 people around, but I live with half of these people. And I would say that my family is almost like a little community in itself. As you can imagine, it's a lot of learning to adapt to each other's living pattern, learning to contributing to helping each other. And most importantly, we have a lot of sharing, caring, and respecting. So I would say that although we love each other, we never express our love through physical touch, like hugs and kisses. Neither do we use any words. So how do we express love? We usually express love through the act of serving. And let me give you a very generic example here. My mother, who's here tonight, she used to work day and night just so that my brother and I can live a life where we don't have to worry too much. She paved the path for us. Similarly, though, this act of selfless giving wasn't only for us. It was also for her parents and for her brothers and sisters. So since I was young observing her, I realized that I could also make a difference. I was learning from her, and I understood the act of serving is very important. So I realized that no matter what age, what size, or what gender I am, I could also make a difference in my little community. I realized that I could make the people around me happy. And when I make people happy, I am happy too. So as I was growing up, I was observing things around me, and I was very aware of what I wanted to do. And I realized that there was a lot of elements in our living environment that could be changed, and it could benefit from better design. And for this reason, I went into product designing. And I hope that through product designing, I could make even the smallest difference in our society. So, unfortunately, in 2009, my grandfather was diagnosed with Parkinson's. Sorry. And for those of you who don't know what Parkinson's is, it is basically a disease that affects your mobility. And as you can see from the video, it affects your muscle stiffness, which means that it makes it very difficult for you to walk. At the same time, it makes your hands involuntarily tremble. And most importantly is when you are diagnosed with Parkinson's, you are to live with this for the rest of your life. Because Parkinson's disease, there's still no cure for it. And what's worse is it's a degenerative disease. Which means that as time goes on, those symptoms that I talked about just now only gets worse. And so now try imagining to have these symptoms. Try imagining this. And try imagining that your limbs start to tremble a lot, and you don't even want to go out to the public because you are afraid that your friends and your family would see this. So you instead lock yourself into your own room. And what's worse is that time permits, you actually start suffering because you fear to even go to the bathroom because you don't want people to assist you to go to the bathroom. But if you don't have someone assisting you, you might fall. And this was what I was seeing in my grandfather. He felt that he was very worthless, and he wanted independence again. He wanted dignity. So for this reason, I went on a mission with my professor to design a toilet, to redesign the toilet to make sure that he can gain independence again and gain dignity again. And so, what's the problem with existing toilets? So the problem with existing adaptive toilet is that they have handles on both sides or one side. This is good for standing, sitting, and also as support. But what we realized, it didn't actually help the main problem. And the main problem is actually the turning around motion. And by turning around, I mean when we approach the toilet, we have to turn to sit. And this very, very simple and trivial motion that none of us really think about actually causes a huge problem for Parkinson's patients or users with restricted mobility. Because if you can imagine, you're already trembling, you're already very desperate for the toilet, and you took time to get to the toilet, you're about to burst, and suddenly you still have to turn around like this, one step at a time, and that was like my grandpa. So imagine how much stress has to go through their mind, and at the same time, this stress actually opens up chances of falls and injuries. So for this reason, my professor and I thought, what if you can approach the toilet without turning around anymore? What if you can approach the toilet with a forward-facing stance, just like this? So we went through a few design process. We went from something that was very mechanical at the beginning, that wasn't very appealing to even use, to something more like a whistle form, which was actually very chunky for homes in Hong Kong, to something more streamlined and having the cistern even implemented inside the ceramic of the toilet. Finally, this was our first prototype. This is Libue. This is the name I gave the toilet. And this is basically a Parkinson's patient's toilet that's also suitable for family members. So what's very important about this is it doesn't require the patients to have to turn around anymore to use the toilet, because now they can actually approach the toilet just like riding a horse. This eliminates the need for them to turn around and make sure that they don't have any falls and eliminate that injury or possibility of any injuries. At the same time, the toilet has integrated handles, which means that family members don't have to worry about walls not having handles anymore or not being able to integrate handles anymore, because the toilet actually has handles that does it for you. At the same time, why is it called a two-in-one toilet? Because we wanted to make sure that just because patients are safe, we don't want to sacrifice the comfort of family members. We want to make sure that family members also have a choice to choose how to use the toilet they want to. So Libue can actually be reverted back to a normal toilet very quickly, and they can use it very comfortably as well. Cleaning also becomes a very difficult part for Parkinson's patients and also users with restricted mobility, as you can imagine. And even if they can clean, cleaning well also becomes very difficult. So just like Japanese toilets, Libue also have automatic cleaning functions, which allow them to clean well without having to worry too much. So at this point, I was very amazed because Libue was actually still a concept, and it still had many improvements to be made. But what was most amazing is it already triggered a lot of reaction from our community. And by community, I mean Parkinson's disease patients, I mean social workers, and I mean designers. So because Libue is a human-centered product, I wanted to make sure that during this process, Parkinson's patients also have a say in how this toilet actually works and whether it's actually comfortable for them. So as you can see here, I still had a lot of improvements I needed to be made because they were telling me there's different things that I need to still solve, which is perfect because design is a try and error process. So that was, they gave me very constructive comments. But what was most amazing about this experience is that they were telling me they found hope. And The reason is because a lot of these patients, they actually get rejected from their family, believing that the only reason why they're so slow is because they wanted attention. So for them to have some stranger working for them, doing something that can alleviate their pressure, made them very happy and made them find hope. So at the same time, with social workers, I received handwritten letters from social workers telling me to keep doing what I'm doing. At the same time, they were giving me more ideas and telling me what else I can do to help the aging society to live better at home. So just like how the Parkinson's patient found hope in having a stranger doing something for them, I also felt amazing the fact that people who I don't know are actually helping and contributing in making this product better, at the same time giving me new ideas on what I can do. So this is when I realized, after Libue, I don't want to end here. I want to make sure that I can go further. I want to make sure that the whole toilet space, the experience can be redefined by making better products. And I hope that in the bathroom space, it can always be safe for the patients, but at the same time, it can always be upgradable, no matter how much you're aging. And I hope that in the future, no matter how aging is perceived now, in the future, it's going to be perceived as a positive thing. It's going to be an upgrade, not a downgrade, as we age. So in the past 10 minutes, I spent a lot of my time talking about how design can contribute to our society by talking about how I design to serve. And it's not just about making pretty things. But what I really want to say today is, actually, we are all here designed to serve. And what do I mean by this? So for me, serving is about giving. And by giving, I mean giving your time, giving your presence, and giving your attention. And if you really think about it, all of us in this room have these resources. It's a choice to choose whether or not we want to give to our community. So let me end with a very short story that happened to me a month ago. And it illustrates how selfish people are still in our society and how much learning we still have to do. So this is in Wan Chai, and a month ago, my partner and I were actually standing exactly where this photo was taken, waiting to cross the road. And what happened was we heard someone screaming. And then suddenly, from that escalator there, we saw an elderly rolling down the escalator. And obviously, immediately, we ran for the elderly to try to help. But I still remember very, very perfectly what happened that day. I remember that there were a lot of pedestrians around, just like this picture. And they were even closer to the elderly than we were. But guess what they did? They did nothing. They stood there and they observed. Anyway, so we got the elderly, we brought him to the bridge, and we were assessing him. He had some bruises on his face and he was bleeding. So we called the ambulance straight away. And when the ambulance got here, I went down to escort the paramedics to where the elderly is. So one of the paramedics had all the equipment with him, and he was heading for the elevator, which was actually right next to the escalator. And in the elevator waiting area, there were a lot of pedestrians. And these pedestrians noticed that these paramedics were there. But guess what happened when the elevator door opened? This time, they didn't do nothing. They actually ran for it. So what happened is these paramedics were forced to go up the stairs instead. And luckily, the elderly suffered very minimal injuries, and he was sent to the closest hospital. But in this 30 minutes, what I saw was something very scary. Our society is still very selfish. And what I realized is just making better products for the aging society to live better at home is not enough, because it's not actually solving the bigger problem. The bigger problem is we all need to start learning to serve each other and take care of each other's well-being. Serving can be as easy as opening the door for someone or even helping when you need to help. So what I've learned over the years is to create a good product, we need a team of people to be doing it. At the same time, to create a good society and a better society, we all need to start to learn to contribute and serve each other better. Thank you.
Oh, that was